Hi, this is Jennifer Pinkerton, and I put together a short presentation for you about breakout rooms in the virtual classroom. As you know, there are so many different ways that you can use breakout rooms in your virtual classes, especially in those whole group classes where you have a large number of students and you want to be able to gather some information and get them engaged and involved. So I'm going to talk about a couple of the reasons that I use breakout rooms in my classroom and give you some examples of what that might look like. So the first reason is when I want all hands on deck. I want all of my students to be engaged. I want them practicing the activity that I've put before them on the board. And one way that I can do that is by placing them in breakout rooms. If I keep them all in the same room with me, maybe I can give one or two people a chance to work on the board. But if I put them in breakout rooms, they can all get out there and work. Another reason I use breakout rooms is to differentiate. When you're working with a large group of students, you want to provide some different levels, some different challenges for your high kids and some extra support for those that might be struggling. Breakout rooms is an excellent tool for that. Sometimes my students want to move at their own pace. Some of them are ready to move a little faster in the class while others need to move a little slower as we work through practice problems. This is another great way to use breakout rooms. And then when I just want to add a little fun or variety, maybe I'm tired of just going through practice problem after practice problem and I want to present it in a different way. Breakout rooms gives me some really cool ways that I can do that. So to start, when you're using breakout rooms in Blackboard, you're going to find the breakout rooms up at the Tools menu. So if you go up to the top left corner of your screen and you see Tools, you'll select Breakout Rooms. You're going to create breakout rooms. Now, you can give them a unique name if you want to, and you can always rename them after they're created. You can determine how many rooms you want to set up, or you can divide your students into groups of a certain number. And this is going to depend on the type of breakout room that you're using. If you've got all the students in class and you're wanting to send them out into groups, you're going to use this option. You're going to divide them into groups of 2 or 4 or 6, however large you want your groups to be. Or you might set up ahead of time. You may be doing some type of scavenger hunt activity or a move at your own pace activity. And so before class, you set up 4 rooms. You're going to click Don't Move Participants, and you're going to get those rooms set up ahead of time. So let's look at some examples and talk about what this might look like in your classroom. So this is an example of an all hands on deck activity. So I teach math. I'm working with a group of students and we're practicing with the coordinate grid. And I want them to use this activity. I want them to find the circle. We see the coordinates for the circle already listed here. Now we're going to look for the hexagon. So I'm going to have the students find the hexagon and write the coordinates. Now, if I had done this in the main room with a large group of students, I could maybe have the kids share their answers with me in the chat box or have 1 or 2 people put their work up on the board. But if I put them in a breakout room with a partner, and notice I want the first student in the room to do the odd numbers. I want the second student in the room to do the even numbers. That way they both have a job. They're going to pop into this room. They can write on the board. I'll give them the tools. They're going to write their answers in here. I'll set the timer for a couple minutes while they're working, and then I'll bring them back to the main room and let them check their answers on the board. So this is just a way that more students can be involved. And think about your own content area. Sometimes you've got a practice activity up on the board and you want the kids to work on it and you've got 1 or 2 volunteers doing it on the board. This is a way you can get all hands on deck. Stick it in a breakout room, move the kids down in groups, give them some privileges, and let them give this activity a try. Notice when I set this one up, this is something I set up while the kids were in the room with me. I said I wanted my kids divided into groups of 2. When I hit create, they go. So I'll sometimes do a countdown. I'm moving you to breakout rooms in 3, 2, 1. I hit create and off they go to their groups. Then if I want to make sure that this slide is in the room I just created, I'm going to right click my slide and I can say current page. And if I had breakout rooms currently set up, I would be able to select copy page to breakout rooms. This is how I'm going to get this slide into every breakout room. When I'm finished, I can go back up to my tools menu, choose my breakout rooms, and there is an option to move all the students back to the main room. So I'm going to send them down to the rooms, set the timer, and then pull them back when I'm finished. Another way that I use breakout rooms is to differentiate. So let's say I've been working through some practice problems with my students. We've been practicing a concept for a little while, and I want them to break out and try a problem on their own. Instead of giving all of the students the same problem to practice, I know my students are at different levels. So I might choose to set up 3 breakout rooms. Room 1, level 1, level 2, and level 3. I can put a different problem in each room. I can even have the kids let me know in the chat box. When I do a check for understanding, you guys, you sometimes do this during class. I'll ask them to give me a green check if they're feeling really good about the concept. Give me a red X if they're still unsure. Maybe they're somewhere in between, kind of on yellow. After they've given me a vote like that and a check for understanding, I may have them use that information to choose the room they want to practice in. I'll often tell them if they feel confident, they can try more than one. Maybe they start at level 1 and then they realize, hey, I've got this. If they have time, they may want to move up and try another level. Sometimes my kids that start at level 3, the more challenging question, if they're able to get it, they'll go back and get the others as well. But this is a way I can provide a little bit of differentiation and let my students try a different practice question depending on their level of comfort and confidence with a concept. When I do it this way, I set these rooms up ahead of time. Before the students come into the room, I have them set up and ready. And when I want the kids to move themselves to a breakout room, I go back up to my tools, breakout rooms, and there is an option for me to allow students to move themselves. That way they can move to the room that they want to work in. Again, I set the timer, and when I'm finished and I want to bring them back to wrap up the activity, I'll go back up there to tools and select return students to the main room. I'll bring them all back and we'll discuss. Another way that I use breakout rooms is to let students move at their own pace. This is an example of a scavenger hunt style activity. Sometimes a scavenger hunt, they're just searching for letters. Like as they go through and they answer a question, they're going to grab the correct letter from their multiple choice and they're going to write it down on their paper. We'll come back and we'll plug all those answers into a mystery message. Sometimes the scavenger hunt might have them move to a different room depending on what their answer is. If you do some searches on Pinterest, you can find all kinds of scavenger hunt activities that are used in a brick and mortar classroom. Well, you can do those in the virtual classroom as well. You just use the breakout rooms for those activities. So keep in mind that all of those fun things that you used to do in brick and mortar, you can still do in a virtual classroom. You just got to get a little creative and start using those breakout rooms to include some of those activities. So for this particular one, I set up my rooms ahead of time. You can see I had 8 different rooms. I'm going to encourage my students to number their papers 1 through 8. As they're working through the room, they're going to grab the letter answer for each of the problems. Notice here that I said each room has review materials and a practice question. There's also a help video. So notice I put some resources on each slide. Since the kids are working independently in their breakout rooms, I want to make sure they have some tools and supports if they need them. And I'll talk to you about another way I do that in just a moment. When they return to the main room, those answers that they found in the breakout rooms, they can plug them into this mystery message. This is kind of a fun way that you can do a scavenger hunt style activity with your kids, and of course add a little bit of fun and variety to your lessons. If they bring back their letters from the room and the message doesn't make sense, then they know they may have missed something, and so they can go back and check again until the timer goes off and we come back to the main room. Again, I set these up ahead of time. I mark don't move participants. I don't want them to be immediately put into those rooms when they come into class. Instead, when I'm ready for this activity to begin, I select the allow students to move themselves option. And again, it's up there in your tools menu. Okay, so sometimes we just want to add a little fun and variety. I know, at least in math, we just need kids to practice. And so sometimes our lessons will have practice question after practice question after practice question. And that can become a little tedious. So sometimes when I'm making my slides, or my teammates, guys, these ideas are not all mine. My teammates come up with amazing ideas, and I'm just sharing a compilation of those with you today. When we have question after question after question in our slides, just one practice question after another, and we want to add in a little fun, this is the way we might do that. This particular example, we had 3 practice questions. Our kids are just multiplying mixed numbers. Instead of having 3 plain slides about multiplying mixed numbers, we made it into a riddle activity. So we gave the kids a riddle. You find me once in the morning, twice in the afternoon, but never in the evening. What am I? We told them to move themselves through the breakout rooms at their own pace, solve each question in your notebook, and write down the code word of your answer, and then come back to the main room. So when they move to the rooms, they look like this. There's a problem. When they find the answer, they get a code word. What, or the, or a. They're going to go to all 3 rooms, collect their code words. When they come back, they have the answer to the riddle. So just a fun way to add a little bit of variety to the classroom. Instead of one practice problem after another, let's mix it up and make it a little more fun. A few final thoughts. So when I'm using breakout rooms and I'm allowing kids to move at their own pace or move themselves through activities, it's important to keep in mind that some of the students are thriving. Some of them are loving it and they're moving through and they're feeling good. Some of the students are struggling. So I always give them the option to raise their hand or come back to the main room if they have a question and they want to talk to me about it. I also will often provide a help room. My help room might look something like this, where I'm going to place the strategies that we're using in today's activity. If they need to go in and maybe take some notes or look at some sample problems, review the strategies, I'll sometimes put a link to a video down at the bottom that they could watch to help them remember. So if they're not super confident about working on their own yet, they have a place where they can stop in and gain a little more information. It's also important to remember when kids are working at their own pace that some of your kids may finish earlier than others, just like you remember from the brick and mortar classrooms. So I will often provide an activity for them. I'll go find an online game or something fun. So if they finish their work early, they have something they can do while they're waiting for us to come together and check the work or go over the answers. And then for those students that watch recordings, once I send the kids out and let them get started, I will often flip through each of the breakout room activities on the main screen. Because remember, breakout rooms are not being recorded. So I want those who are watching the recording to see this is breakout room 1. This is breakout room 2. I'll encourage them just to pause their recording while they're working on that activity and then press play when they're ready to move to the next room. That way my students who are watching their recording still get to have the experience and see what's happening in the breakout rooms. All right, so that's just a little glimpse, a little bit of information about how we might use breakout rooms in the virtual setting. If you have any questions or want to chat about some of the ways you're using breakout rooms, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to hear your ideas, or if you have questions or want help figuring out how to put these into play in your class, please reach out and let me know. My name is Jennifer Pinkerton, and my email, of course, is jpinkerton@k12.com. Thank you.